So here's the next part of our discussion.
Racist. They were immigrants, first generation Americans, Sicilian immigrants. They had their views on race, and I was like, how can I adopt a child of a different race? And first of all, the one thing that went through me is I wouldn't be able to teach them about their culture. Like, that was the first thing that was like, if I adopt a child who's of a different race, how do I raise them? Like, I don't know anything about their culture, and I would want them to know that. But then the second thing was because of family. And even when we did finally adopt an infant, he was German and I think Puerto Rican. And so, so the comments in the beginning it was hard because the family would make comments about them being Hispanic, and it was negative, and it wasn't, eventually they grew to love my son. But it was hard to hear those, and I would have to constantly correct them when they would say things that I felt were racist, and it was really uncomfortable. But it eventually, they grew to love him, and it was never an issue after that. I don't know, adoption is weird because I joined a lot of adoption groups, like parent groups. And the one question I always got from adoptive parents who did not have biological children were, do you love your kids the same? And it's so crazy to hear that question. Do you love your kids the same? And my answer was yes. Like, to me, it didn't matter. They were my kids. And it didn't matter. Like, both my kids, they're my boys. I love them both the same. And there is no difference. And that always gave comfort to some of the other parents who didn't have biological children.
That's a brilliant, I mean, that is a fairly amazing story. I've read your book about it. And in fact, Zen up there and Rachel both have, because of the way the universe has aligned itself, Rachel's a very much pro-advocate for adoption. In the book I wrote, in the UK, there's something like 300,000 children in the care system. 50% of all prison inmates below 25 have been in the care system. So they're in there till they're 18, thrown out, commit a crime, in jail, life screwed. So I know that Zen has this thing called Apocalyptic Chats. He's invited Rachel on. Sounds to me like we should be having another conversation that is free-flowing like this.
You might not be aware of, Jonathan, is years ago, around turn of the century, I taught high school for 6 or 7 years in multiple environments, district, charter, private, and ended up writing a business plan for a model school / village based around holistic education that was specifically for at-risk populations, which adoptees are a part of. So this was, and I put it out, I promoted it for a while. I took it to the Director of Child Protective Services for the state of Arizona and presented it to him because I figured that would be the first place to start. And he says, Zen, I love your plan, but you're light years ahead of us. I don't know if we'll ever catch up.
Yeah.
Then 20 years later, I got a chance to present it again at a Rebuild regenerative community building festival, online festival with, 50, 60 people in the room. There was over 700 participants in it. But it showed me that, there's still some interest and it's still not time yet.
Now that's interesting to me because you're light years ahead of yourself. Rachel, you're light years ahead of anyone in your field in terms of the influence you command. I shouldn't say it about myself, but my plan is light years ahead of itself.
Yes, you are.
So
you're in good company.
Yeah. So I'm wondering then if there's a tenaciousness that comes
absolutely.
From the questions.
Absolutely.
So
I'm a tenacious son of a bitch, and I've been called that.
Yeah, I've been called quite a lot.
Honest, because you were having an honest conversation and you were telling them they needed to be told. In a way, what I'm saying is that.
Come back for the next part of this discussion.